So we now have episode 2 of the final season of The Walking Dead. This episode is called Arcadian Part 2, and if you have not seen this episode yet and you don't want anything spoiled for you, do not watch this review because this review is going to contain full spoilers for the episode as well as episode 1. So this episode picks up right where episode 1 left off, where you saw the big cliffhanger where Negan looked at Maggie and then walked away. Now everyone knew that Maggie was not going to die. It had to be a special kind of stupid to think Maggie was actually going to die there after her being gone for the entirety of season 10 and the majority of season 9, besides come back in the final episode of season 10. You'd have to be very stupid to actually think she was going to die there in the first or the second episode of season 11. How she kind of saves herself was a way I kind of predicted anyways. I knew she wouldn't like find a strength out of nowhere, pull herself up and get on top of the train cart. She went under it, just like Glenn did with the dumpster, and it's just great because you just know she knows how to do that, well, or think of that anyways, because Glenn told her all about what happened with Nicholas and told her all about how he survived getting away from that situation. So you knew in the moment she thought of Glenn to get out of there, probably Herschel Jr. as well, because she doesn't want to leave Herschel alone. But how Negan plays out the situation, I thought made perfect sense. Now I feel like I'm a Negan fanboy and defending Negan all the time, but like it completely makes sense. Maggie was going to kill him. She was willingly going to kill him. She had no problem killing him. So his reaction was, well, I'm just not going to save her. If she's going to kill me, why would I bother saving her? And it makes complete sense. And he kind of explains that to everyone, and you can see reason in everyone's mind. Even you can see it in Maggie. She's like, well, fair fucks to you. And you see throughout this episode, not like a friendship growing between the two of them, but you see a bond, actually, not a bond, you can see a mutual respect going between the two of them, because at one point Maggie hands Negan a gun because she knows we're in a situation, we need all the help we can get. Negan, here's a gun. So you can see that she is not so much kind of growing to like him, but more growing to see that, okay, this guy is an asset. He is actually not going to be going anywhere, so we might as well use him while we have him. But as soon as she does come out, she does deck him straight away, and everyone's talking about killing him, which of course makes sense in the moment. But of course they don't kill Negan because you can't kill something like that, because Negan's fucking badass. But throughout the episode you do see a lot of a darker tone from Maggie, and ever since Glenn died, I've never really been a fan of Maggie. What they've done with her in season 7 and 8, I felt like they didn't really do much with her character to kind of flesh out the death. You just didn't really get to see anything that was actually meaningful and actually meant anything from the death of Glenn, I thought, from Maggie. But in this episode, you get to see a lot from Maggie, and I don't like Maggie. What she done in this episode, I can't remember the character's name, but he was one of the friends of that group that Henry had kind of was hanging out with at season 9. And you see him coming back, because we saw in episode 1 he actually ran away because he was afraid. Of course, he's a kid. I think he's probably about my age, so he ran away in fear. But then he comes back and he explains to them what happened. He came back, but he forgot to close the door, so there's a shit ton of walkers coming in. And because of that, you see Alden trying to open the door, shouting at everyone, help me open the door, help me open the door. But no one budges, no one moves. And Maggie's like, just let him die. And they're all watching him as walkers come down. He's panicking, and Maggie's like, let him die, it's his own fault, we don't have the ammunition to fight these people. And you're looking at Maggie and you're like, geez, you are just a bitch now. I couldn't get over how she was just willing to let him die because he was afraid. This guy's a kid, and she is willing to let him die because he was afraid and ran away. Like, I couldn't get over that. And in the moment of that, he stabs himself in the heart because he knows he'd rather be dead and then be eaten rather than be alive being eaten. Kind of makes sense. This is probably as well the most gruesome walker death we've seen since Noah, death from season 5. We haven't seen anything like that as anywhere near compared to that. But the only person who was trying to save him was Alden. So I remember back in season 8 when he was first introduced, I always thought, okay, he seems like Dante. I wonder if he's going to be Dante, get that relationship with Maggie. But now, after what Maggie's done this episode, especially because Alden was there, I can't see a relationship, well, a romantic relationship forming between the two of them. Just because I can't see Alden being interested in Maggie after doing something like that. But you know Negan wasn't going to step up because he's not in the right place to be stepping up and doing something like that. As well, Gabriel, I was surprised that Gabriel had no remorse whatsoever, but then if you look at his storyline at the moment, the guy is very kind of dark at the moment, just like Maggie, so it made sense why he didn't step up either. But Maggie does tell a story about her and Herschel Jr. that when they were on the road, and the story was quite terrifying, and I actually would love to see an episode of that. I don't know what the plan is for Maggie. I don't think we're going to see like a kind of what happened to her in season 11. But if they do like a limited series for Maggie telling her the story what happened out there, I would love to see this episode, because I've always imagined when Maggie left, she kind of went about and took Herschel to all these places. Like I imagine she took Herschel to the farm. I'd love to see Herschel and Maggie go back to the old farm. Maybe they go back to the prison and say, this is where my granddad died, or your granddad died, and it shows off where Glenn and Maggie lived for a year or so. So I would kind of imagine she always went back and done all that stuff. But the story that she told in this episode was so intense. You can like literally, as Lauren Cohan was describing what was happening, you could literally visualize what was happening. It was extremely dark. It was very creepy. It reminded me a bit of the Wrong Turn franchise. So I was kind of imagining all that, but it was very creepy, very unsettling. And it just shows that, as Maggie says in the episode, Alexandria and Hilltop were a special place, because what's out there in the world is not good. And just, I would like to see more, especially we're probably going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff in the Carol and Daryl show. All the dark shit, how dark the world is out there, and I'm really excited about it. But speaking of Daryl, in episode 1 we did see him go off on his own chasing after the dog, and what we got in this episode wasn't anything amazing, but it still was a lot of fun. So what we see Daryl go through is he's searching for Dog to see where Dog had run off to. We see him actually go through what looks to be a settlement of people who live there, pretty much, I'm assuming, at the start of the apocalypse. You see him look at a lot of murals and a lot of kind of, like there was a walker, well, a dead walker, with his arm after being chopped off because he had his hand handcuffed to a suitcase full of money. Just really stuff. I feel like all that stuff is kind of setting up the Commonwealth, not really setting it up, but just kind of foreshadowing, saying like, we're going back to this world, because that's what the Commonwealth storyline is. So I enjoyed seeing all of that, but that was something that we saw in a trailer, so all of it was just kind of familiar. It was nothing really new, I thought, as we were watching it. But I love the character of Daryl, so it was pretty cool to see some more of Daryl. You do see him actually find Dog, as well as you get to see him actually run across the character of Roy, who's covered in blood. I don't know if he was bitten, but the guy is covered in blood. In doing so, we find out Roy was the one actually carrying all of the supplies, well, the ammunition, and he has lost it all besides a handgun and a grenade. He says to Daryl, "Tell my kids that I did not die a coward." Daryl then finds the train cart, but he finds it in the opposite end of the kid, who I still don't know his name. And we see Daryl have probably one of his best action scenes of the entire series. I can't think of other action scenes. The guy's been in so many, but honestly, I thought this was easily one of his best, where you watch the train, you're watching it going across the train, you don't move, like you're staying in the one position, you're just moving down the train as Daryl walks, and you see him with a pistol just shooting all these walkers down, and it's just honestly a badass scene. Once he gets he opens the door, all the characters come in, and then he tells them, "I'll hide behind it." He kicks a walker, as the walker opens his mouth, Daryl shoves a grenade right down his stomach, punches the walker in the mouth. As the grenade falls down, he kicks them back, and he explodes all of the walkers to bits using that grenade, and it was just so badass. The only other time from memory we've seen Daryl use a grenade is when he blew up a tank, and Daryl is just a fucking badass character, and I love Daryl's character, and it was great to see him inside this episode doing all the stuff he was actually doing. But we do, to wrap up with our actual main group before I go on talking about the Commonwealth group, you see our main group, they come up to the surface. It's not raining anymore, it's kind of calmed down, it's very dark, but they're kind of walking in a street, and they come across a street that has, on every single lamppost or tree, I'm not exactly sure, but there was bodies dangling, all these bodies that have been hung, very reminiscent of the Savior arc. You could see Negan's like, this is not good, this is not good, we can't be here. And then you see, all of a sudden, Roy falls to the ground after getting an arrow to the face, and then I think the guy's name was Cole, gets what I think was his hand chopped off, and then it's on the ground, and then all of a sudden the Reapers walk towards him, which they just are fucking terrifying. They all have their weapons. All our group just fucking panic and run, hide behind anything they can. I don't know what's going to happen with our characters, because this is quite terrifying, because we'd seen the Saviors, but the Saviors, they were scary, but you can tell none of them were trained beforehand. Like, Negan was a gym teacher, for crying out loud. The Whisperers were scary because it was unlike anything we saw before. But this group seems terrifying because they seem like they were all trained pre to the apocalypse. They seem like they were all probably soldiers prior to the apocalypse. So they seem very terrifying because our group aren't trained. Maggie was a farmer's daughter. Negan was a gym teacher. Gabriel was a priest. Daryl was... We never know what Daryl was. But honestly, our group they're all trained in the apocalypse because it's been 10 years. But they aren't trained to the extent of the Reapers, what it looks like anyway. So I have no idea how our group is actually going to fight the Reapers. Maybe the Commonwealth soldiers will come in handy there. But honestly, I don't know how our group is going to fight them off. But speaking of Commonwealth, we'll get on with them. And again, it wasn't anything amazing, just like last week's episode. It very much is setting up what's going to happen because the Commonwealth storyline hasn't really kicked off yet. This is just the beginning. You see them actually talking. You see them getting information. You see Yumiko being accepted. You see Ezekiel being accepted. You're seeing Princess being accepted, but Eugene doesn't know any of this, and he's kind of freaking out and panicking, and he's talking to Mercer. He's crying. He's explaining everything, and it was quite a good scene. But we find out as well that the actual currency that the Commonwealth use is the American dollar. So Daryl doesn't really give a shit, but Daryl could have done with that suitcase he had saw. As soon as I heard that, I thought back to season 4 when Daryl and Beth were in the golf course and Daryl got a big bag of money. Meant nothing, but to Daryl's like, this is a lot of money. I've never seen this amount of money, so it's cool. But now the fact that that's actually the currency they use, it's quite insane. I always kind of assumed that they just kind of made their own currency just because the American dollar would be so easy to find. If you just go out there, you'd find it so easily. So I was kind of surprised that they actually do use that, but of course it makes sense because it's just so much easier to use the American dollar. But it's also saying that they do use just normal currency in there, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with the Commonwealth arc moving forward, because in the comics it wasn't amazing. It was quite a weak storyline to end off with. So hopefully in the TV series they're going to do better, because I imagine they will. The Whisperer arc was a lot better in the show than it was in the comic series. The Savior arc was a lot better in the comic than it was in the show. So hopefully the Commonwealth arc will be better in the show. But as I said, Eugene was crying. He was explaining everything to them. They do all get accepted. We find out that, I don't know exactly if Ezekiel is now cured, but he says they got some treatment. The swelling has gone down, so hopefully he's going to get the treatment. Ezekiel isn't going to die by cancer. I'm pretty confident Ezekiel's going to get Rick's death in the comics. I don't think Ezekiel's going to survive the entirety of the show, but I don't think he's going to die from cancer, and I'm actually really glad, because I like Ezekiel. I've never loved Ezekiel. He's never been my favourite character. He was definitely better as King Ezekiel during the Savior arc. Now he seems a bit more tamed. He seems just one of the group now. He doesn't seem like a larger than life character than he did in season 7 and 8, especially not as he did in the comic book series. But I still do like the character of Ezekiel, and I'm really excited because they're actually heading now to the Commonwealth. I assume we're not going to see them in episode 3 or episode 4, and my guess is episode 5 or 6. I think we're going to take a bit of a break from our characters in that storyline, focus on our characters with the Reapers, because the Commonwealth next thing is getting there, and I kind of think they want to leave that towards the end of the first half of part 1. But anyways, I'm really excited to see what is going to happen with the Commonwealth, because as I said, I want to see what's going to happen with them, because it was very anticlimactic in the comic book series, and I want to see what's going to happen with the TV series. My guess is Rick's death in the comic book series is going to go to Ezekiel, and my death for Dwight, I think it's going to be Magma. But it's not going to be Ezekiel. I think it's going to be Yumiko actually killing her there, because she's the only character I can feel can actually get that death. But I'm very excited to see how all that's going to play out. And if you want to hear my thoughts on episode 3, that should be dropping soon enough. Episode 3 comes out tomorrow, so if you want to hear my thoughts on that, make sure you click the subscribe button to go back and hear my future thoughts on not only episode 3 but the entirety of season 11 of The Walking Dead. Walking Dead is my favourite show, and it has been since I started watching in season 4. I'm so excited to see the ending, but I'm also so disappointed that it's finally coming to an end. Excited for the Rick movies, everything. I love this franchise. It's one of my favourite universes. I go back and forth between this and the MCU because I love the Walking Dead universe so much. So if you want to see future content from me in the Walking Dead universe, click the subscribe button to come back and see future content from me. And as always, thanks for watching.